Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Roll to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good morning and welcome back to the Beef and Barnzy Show, live from Lima, Peru and Pflugerville, Texas. I am, as usual, Barnzy, joined by the unimitable Stuart Williams. How are you this morning?
Confused. I was just
telling all the energy right out of the box. I like it.
I was just telling Chris that I'm filling out my business census, and it's just the most pointless waste of time ever, because like 97% of the questions aren't related to being a professional athlete. So
no. Technically we have a business, but we don't have employees. We don't have.
Yes. And like I said to Chris, it said, which of the following directly impacted your ability? EJ Tackett wasn't an option. Which of these factors directly impacted your chance of the business making money this year? Funnily enough, EJ Tackett and Anthony Simonson didn't come up.
It seems like they should have, though.
Yeah, it really should. But
they're
shout out
legitimate answers this year.
Yes,
Victor should have dropped off. You know, it's just kind of.
Victor says returning guest. I prefer recurring. Let's get the shout out the way just to start with. Our friend Robert Eddy over at Lightning Strikes, huge sponsor of the show, has a big scratch tournament on the 19th. 5,000 added, so everything over there is a cool experience, well ran. I think they've got the live streaming backup for all of the pairs, so that's pretty cool. They're using the Amleto oil pattern for 2023. I haven't really had a chance to bowl on that one, but I know Chris has. Was that the one you made the final on?
Which one? The
Amleto.
That was one of the patterns at the World Series. That was the medium pattern this year.
Okay, so that wasn't the one you made it on, right? The final, I mean.
No.
Okay.
It was not. It's 40-footer. It's it's kind of medium all the way around. But in that place, I hope they use a little bit of the higher volume of it.
Yeah.
Because, whoa. This is right at the back end. Right before we start the tournament in Fort Myers for the PBA 50 guys, so there'll be some fish food for you guys out there. That's all guys for you to feed off of. And as usual, he runs great tournaments, adds in a lot of money. It's one of the few places where you can bowl an amateur tournament and on somebody's money besides your own.
Yeah, I might have a look at flights. Come and see you for a couple of days anyway. So. All right. Just wanted to get that out. Shout out to Robert Eddy for his continued support of the channel. We really appreciate it. And yeah, back to our scheduled programming.
Paul Anderson jumping in here. He led us to a 16th place finish in the Nationals. Those results are up and posted now, I believe.
Prize money.
Not yet.
Prize money's posted.
Prize money is posted also?
Yes. Our guest of the channel, Nick Crummell, managed to walk away with 23,800 in checks just from the events. I guess that's a record. So
the prize money, despite the 40% VIG that they take, which is a pretty healthy cut considering all the things they get on from the cities, it's still a pretty large prize fund.
Yeah, I did find that justification quite funny, the way they. Yeah, but our tournament isn't the same as all the other tournaments. Okay, well, because it runs for so long and everything else. I'm like,
it probably would justify less expenses, not more.
40% still seems like quite high. Yeah, other tournaments aren't propped up by the brackets either.
Yeah, which there are no expenses and a bracket sponsor. So you get paid for the brackets, you get paid by the city. And yeah.
And you take
The
12
SBC is now a tournament organization.
Yeah.
They make money off tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And they're allowed to. They put in the work. There is a lot of staff. So
100% there is.
So the expenses will run a little higher at that tournament. Now, whether that could be rolled into the fact that they have bracket sponsors and host city sponsors that cover a lot of that expense right up front, it's probably a point worth arguing. But entries are the only barometer. If people keep showing up, I don't expect much to change.
No, it's just like I say, it's quite startling when you see 40% written down.
Yeah, it seems like an awful lot. David Tolson, friend of the show and regular contributor, pattern links and volumes. They just bowl on one pattern now because they've kind of ruined the whole thing. As much as I was against two patterns when they went to it, the bitching about fairness, unfairness, and all that other stuff kind of went away. If you bowl bad on one pattern, it's the lane man, the surface, the whatever's fault. If you do bowl bad on two, it eliminates a lot of that. And it keeps a lot of people more interested once day one happens and they don't bowl it. But they're bowling on the 40, I think it's 44-foot London. It's fairly high volume. I mean, it's standard volume, I should say. It's in the 28 range, like everything is. And it's in a place where really right a 7-8 doesn't hook. So they've finally moved deeper and deeper. And yesterday on the boys' side, all four boys shot 1,400. Brandon Bonner shot 1,500. And the high score that was not on their team, there was a 1304.
Yeah. They were a little overpowered.
They literally were men amongst boys yesterday. There's four guys that are probably going to throw a ball professionally at some point, and there was no others in that field that were. So they won by 600. Ryan was on the Pacer squad because they're 1, 2. Now they're 1, 2, 3, 4 in all events, but Ryan was the lowest, so he sat for the trios. His Pacer team actually, I think, might have got the bronze medal, even though their low guy shot 180 under. But they all bowled well. Team event is today and tomorrow, and that will wrap things up. The women also won by almost 500. Caitlin Abaganya shot a bunch yesterday, and she did not do it the same way the guys did. She wasn't open the layup. She was freezing it in there and doing it really good from about 17, 18, and shot, I believe it was give or take 150 over, averaged about 220, and ran and hid from the rest of the field. All the girls were plus, though, and they were much better. A much younger team, a much different strategy with the women's team. She had some, Jillian Martin and Mabel Cummings, who are obviously two of the best U21 players on the planet. And they sat them for this event to try and get some more experience with some younger players to join them for the World Games next year.
Yeah, the ladies' event's a little disappointing, only having 5 teams.
Yeah, the right teams are there for the most part.
Yeah, it's just like part of the fun of these events is to experience different cultures and different countries and get to know some people and make friendships, lasting friendships. And when there's only 5 teams, it's a little different.
Yeah, the guys have 8, and it was. I was proud of Ryan. He did something I was never very good at. He made the 3 guys, the 2 guys he was pacing with, and made them into a little team right off the bat, and they had a little fun and made it a non-miserable thing, which it can be for the pacers of each team.
He didn't
Puerto Rico, especially.
He didn't do the Walter Ray thing and put his chair at the back.
Yeah, just not talk to anyone for the.
That's literally the funniest thing that's ever happened in the history of bowling, as far as I'm concerned. Walter Ray, arguably the greatest bowler to ever live, bowling the Pacer team. And the guy from Uzbekistan wanted to give him 5, and Paige giving Walter a hard time because he wasn't given 5.
Chris, I appreciate you listening while you're driving. Fortunately, we have faces made for radio, so that works out pretty well that you can just listen.
Well, I'm glad our bullshit isn't distracting. Danny asked me, have you had a chance to try out the 3G shoes? I have. I am very impressed so far. I'm really impressed by the heels. I actually had a little bit more issue with the heels than anything else. I found that the materials of the heels for me were a little inconsistent previously. This new heel material, I've tried a couple of them. I haven't managed to get to the super sticky heel yet, but I'm going down to Astro this weekend, which is always
one thing
a great.
You didn't show us the other day was all 3 heels. I didn't see because I haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, so there's a gray heel, and then there's like a kind of a sort of beige looking heel. They both look very similar, but the darker one is like, I think it's like H15 or whatever the heel numbering is. But to give you an idea, it goes H15, H11, and then the other one that's the shark tooth looking one is 3.
Oh, so they're different hardnesses then.
I would guess that that's the difference between the two flat heels. And then, like I say, the other one, Maria tried it because she's always looking for something that sticks a little more. She thought that it was probably in between the maroon and the orange one from the little bit that she got to slide with it on the
As
deck.
a fellow person that struggles with that, getting the ball through the front, adding a little slide might not hurt her case there.
But yeah. either way. So yeah, I liked it. I had some of the old soles, so I cut up one of the buckskin ones or whatever. I put that on. Super easy. Way less hassle with making the soles the right size, because that was always a bit of a pain in the ass with the other soles, because you had it, the piece around the outside. So you had to get the angles exactly right to not have, the Velcro get dust all over it. So yeah, pretty comfortable. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about shoes, but overall good.
Good morning, gentlemen. Would the Zen Surface be good on the 46-foot USB-C Masters pattern? That was one of the options, was taking balls that weren't. Although we did have probably more luck taking covers that were a little bit cleaner and adding some surface to them. But that was one of the balls I think people used. They used Eternity, used that. And by putting some surface on that Zen, that smooths it out a little bit, which was part of the key too, because you couldn't get it very far away from the head pin, at least at Thunderbolt. So yeah, Adam, for you, I think asymmetrical is probably a better way to go on 46 feet because your rev rate isn't quite as high. But it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, it's loaded. For those who don't know, Brandon Bonta, Julian Salinas, Spencer Robarge, and Ryan. It's a pretty good team, and they get along. It's fun to watch them because they, for a bunch of guys, are super competitive. They have a nice synergy among them. Katie wants to know how breakfast was. It was quick because I came up here to do the show. So, but
there he is. Morning. We just we waxed lyrical about you at the start, so if you missed it, you can go back and have a look at that.
Right, but we did. August 19th. We'll see you there.
Somebody says, who is this young guy who replaced Barnes?
Man, one pair of non-binocular glasses.
I was about to say, it looks like Tim isn't wearing his glasses either.
It's good light here in South America. You just naturally appear younger, I guess. It must be how it works.
Thoughts on the whole IBF Wheelchair? We covered this a little bit on Tuesday. I think more than anything else, I think it's just a little sad. I think that a bunch of the countries are kind of somewhat in a bind, and they have to go because of funding. And
places like Canada who finally got funding for the first time since COVID, and they they can't really turn it down for fear of never getting it again. And then you have some that are choosing because of the lack of information, at least the official reason of not knowing who's going to be there, not wanting to attend a world championship like, was it last year? That was 14 countries, 14 and 8.
I think the problem was the World Cup one, they had one idea, and then when it didn't go the way they wanted it to, they just changed it. Yeah. So
I think the format is awful. I think they have done a horrific job of bastardizing the World Championship format into an equalizer handicap tournament format.
I was about to say, and that isn't on the Shake.
No, but
blame him for a lot of things. I'm just saying you can blame him for a lot of things, but that was done by the committee and the people who thought they knew best. That wasn't the Shake. So
okay. Well,
all I'm saying is I ain't defending him, but there are more people in the line who can get blamed for that one than him.
Yeah, I mean, hoping that the IBF would back up and USBC would back up the urethane rule, and we'd have one rule across the board, but they have so many bigger fish to fry right now.
Well, USBC aren't going to back it up, so I think they're more likely to make the fucking 16s and 17s legal than they are to go with this rule.
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Where is the Tour Dynamics video? That's a good question. I finally got the other one uploaded, and I've done the thumbnail. I just need to press go, which I'll do after this for Barnzy's clone video. I uploaded it yesterday and realized that I'd made a screw up, and it came out very white, the video. So I needed to go back in and finish it. So,
guys, anyone who's polished the summit? And what was the result? There you go.
I've polished the summit. It didn't do quite what I expected it to do. It really, for me, when you polish the balls, some of the balls, it makes them quicker. And some of them, it just makes them weaker. And I think that the summit, I was hoping it was going to make it quicker. But I think overall, it really just made it weaker. It just hooked less. It wasn't really angular. It was still super smooth for me. It was just weaker. So that would be what I would take from that. The gem was a little like that also for me. Whereas the reality, when you shine the reality, I think that makes a really big difference. I think it changes the shape completely. Whereas with the gem, I felt like it just made it the same shape, just further down the lane, like, and less of it. And I think the summit kind of fits in that category a little more.
Julian's throwing a dollar summit here with some success. I've let mine lane shine, and then I recently added polish to try and get it in play. Haven't really had a chance to throw it yet. So not sure what balls the guys use in Peru. Most of them end up selling on the Zen Gold. Has actually been a go-to for all the guys. All right. And Terry Peck says he's ready for college bowling to start. In the Jerry chant, for those of that have seen that, that's a pretty incredible situation. What college bowling is kind of all about, and loving the Zen Gold. How about you guys? I'm a big fan. I have a down one that we did the video with that I've since added some surface to and used as a little bit slower, and then I still have a Pinup taller one that I plan on using here in the next few weeks, especially when we go down to Robert's place, Mr. Eddie's place down in Lightning Strike, where there's some friction. I think that's has a really good chance of being in play there. Tim says his laser eye surgery needs refreshing, undoubtedly, if he thinks I'm young. So I appreciate though, Tim.
I think there's only one correct answer to this, and it's the LA
Dallas Strikers. So
well, no, but Miss Iobo here is from Denmark, so.
Oh, I don't care. Yeah.
Nope. No interest in needing to fly for a regional.
That's a hike from where you are. Yeah. That's about a 10.5-hour drive for a regional. So that's probably not happening. Overland Park's a great area though. Which center?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it'd be a great regional. I'm bowling down in San Antonio this weekend.
The Clone is a ton down lane for a solid ball. Yeah, shiny, solid. We thought it was a pearl when it came out by the pictures, but it's not. So, Tour Dynamics, Summit, or Clone. Those are three way different balls. Tour Dynamics core is way too small to be the top end as far as a strong ball. Clone, perhaps, may end up being the strongest of it, even though it's shiny. And if you knock a little bit of that shine off, I'm sure it's the strongest of the three, would be my take so far. Let's see. My next PBA 50 event, I'll be flying out of here on a red eye Saturday night. And so I'll arrive at Sterling, Virginia, just about 2 hours before practice. I should be chipper and ready to go, I'm sure. Hopefully I get to sleep a little bit on the plane.
Hey, James. Yeah, I'd like I say, just it's too far for me. And it's sold out. So that's awesome.
Good. That's great. Polished Summit equals no. The duo cover, I think it stands up and goes forward. I think the Summit's much more rounded in general. As of late, I've seen some things that remind me of the Summit a little bit more of the aspect for those that threw that. It does some cool things, but it's a little unique compared to some of the other bigger balls also. And so by putting a little polish on it, like what Stu's talking about, I think there's an opportunity to play a little straighter with a really big ball and kind of control some of that wet dry. I think it has a chance of fitting in that little slot. So
I've got a quick, this is an interesting question. What ball do you gravitate more towards when the fronts are totally wasted? This is really depends what the back part of the lane's like. Sometimes when the fronts are really, really bad for us, we actually will do the opposite of what you think. And we'll go to a stronger ball because that'll burn up just a little bit and then it'll have more chance of being
slow response. So it doesn't stand up and get forward so quick. Can sometimes be, especially if there's a little bit of friction that you can throw it to. If you still have to create hook down lane, then for me, it's more like the X2 or one of those really clean covers, but it's got a big core behind it. So you can you're trying to float it through and then have enough core to get it to come back off of it.
When we're bowling on tour, I like the Revenant quite a bit in that spot. Just if you're just talking that traditional style. So, Neil Stremmel says, "Nice shirt, Chris."
Not many of these around anymore.
Ryan Martin, thanks again, bros. Morning. He ordered a Revenant in addition to the Clone. Both fill slots have been lacking, mostly bowl on wood lanes for league. Okay, I can see that. You get like two. The Clone fills like kind of the higher spot in your bag. Revenant is a pretty good option after sort of like phase 2 type balls go away. I could see how those being good options for sure. Somebody asked, what is his name?
One in between. Sun being two-handed, do you recommend any balls for the burn? He's got a IQ Ruby is as low as he needs to go.
I was about to say reality.
It's just not a fair fight. It's this is a good question.
Yes, I don't think those balls are particularly close.
Big enough difference between the Tour Dynamics and Exponent. Yeah, I think Exponent is right in the middle, a small step below phase 2, and Tour Dynamics is that lower end type of ball where they hook, but a smoother shape down lane.
I think a Tour Dynamics is like a 2-inch pin ball. Like it rolls like it's a 2-inch pin ball almost. Like it's going to be something that's really good on the fresh. I don't think it's going to be the ball you're going to use after the oil carries down because it flares so little. I think it's going to be really good for keeping your angles in front of you. I'm
dryer house
kind
shots.
of excited to see what it's going to look like on some of the patterns when guys aren't just clobbering the lanes with urethane. I think it could be a really good addition. So, sports. Good morning, gentlemen. You were talking about shoes, and I don't use a max slide for both heel and toe. I face plant. Any suggestions to avoid that? If I don't use max slide for both heel and toe, it sounds like you're a little flat-footed to me, so that you've got your heel and your toes sliding at the same time. Most guys end up where they'll push off on the toes and then they'll gradually go onto their heel. You have the thing that quite a lot of people have, where you probably got your weight leaning back a little bit, so then you're on your heel when you're sliding. If you can get your weight a little further forward, you can get onto your toes and then slide.
Yeah, the only other option at that point, but yeah, to actually be able to slide like that, you're just centered on your foot versus being on the ball of your foot when you're sliding. Stu's spot on there. As far as something in between, you can do kind of what we've done in the past, where you cut those heels or use one of the adjustable ones where the front leading edge at least has a little bit of felt on it, so you can get it a little further in front of you before you have some break. So,
yeah, but good question. Thanks for the super chat.
yeah, very good.
But yeah, just experiment a little bit with that.
Clone versus Infinite. I think the clone is a little bit
quicker
overall. Would be, I would say. Both
I don't think
big.
it's quite as continuous either. I think it makes a stronger move. Like I say, I think what you said makes the most sense. I think it's closer to the altered reality than anything else.
Okay.
I don't think it's very close to the UFO alert for me.
Yeah, we went in blind. If I was to redo a ball test afterwards, that's what that would be a ball I would try and dig out and throw to get a look at. Dynamics like IQ Tour. I think the dynamics is smoother than IQ Tour.
I've heard people talk about that. I don't think they're particularly close for me. Like the IQ Tour is much more angular. It's got more overall hook. It's cleaner. Like, I guess I'm just missing it on the Tour dynamics, because Sean laid me another one out, Sean Ryan, and it really doesn't flare, but it's actually by far better than the other one that I drilled originally.
I have about 10 more minutes here before I have to
okay. No problem.
I do get to as many of these as we can.
Looking to fill out my 6-ball arsenal. Exotic Gem, Phase 2, Zen, UC3, 300 revs and 15 at the monitor, full roller. My current thinking is the 2 balls at the weekend. Well, it sounds like you bowl on a lot of friction if you think you need 2 weaker balls. For me, you would need something above, especially if you've only got 300 RPMs. I think that the reality is screaming out to be added to this bag. I think the reality for lower rev rate players is a really good option. I think it continues really well.
Yeah, that's a top end, and maybe a hustle rip if you're really looking for a ball at the lower end. I think.
Yeah, and if you want
the current go-to choice, or a Ruby kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
because I was about to say the Zen's pretty strong to move down to a hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ruby maybe a better bridge in there.
Yeah. Ruby could be a good option.
It changes directions pretty good.
But yeah.
Several weeks ago, JJ talked about a 5-inch pin down drilling. What he's talking about, just 5 inch from the PAP. Like for me, that's just underneath my middle finger. So it's just pin down being pin up. Old school is just pin up is above the fingers. Pin down is below the fingers.
Yeah, it's kind of it's more of a phrase of speech now, because that doesn't really happen now, because based on people's axis points, and I think JJ has a fairly standard axis point. I don't think he's got too much up or down, kind of similar to me.
Yeah, I think that for him, that's probably pretty close to his bridge.
Yeah, it's probably a 4 to 5 inch pin buffer also. So what that means is when it goes down, it's going to be a little bit less responsive. It's going to flare a little less if you have a longer pin buffer, which is what part of the down is. And it'll be a more rounded, continuous shape. So, sorry.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah, I have really flat feet. Also, I'm talking about the way you're walking. Like when you're sliding, you've got the entirety of your foot down. Just try to like raise your, like get your weight a little forward and get your weight onto your toes and then onto your heel.
Yeah. Exponent close to the axiom. No.
Summit.
Summit is close to the axiom. The Exponent's a little cleaner than and a little more rounded than the Zen phase 2 kind of.
Yeah. It's kind of a mini phase 2.
Yeah.
John, thanks for the super chat. Chris, been a fan of yours since I was a youth bowler. Yeah, I love you even more. Got back into the game after 20 years. Love you even more. It's almost like I paid for this question. Stoked to still see you on tour. Stu, you're cool too. Thanks for the show, guys. Man, you've made my day with that question. I used to follow you as a league bowler. I've been out the game for 20 years. Just ticking boxes.
Yes, I'm old. No. Yeah, still trying. It's better than saying, "Are you still on tour?" when I've bowled every event. That's more. Being a young senior bowler myself, is there anything off the lanes you do to stay in shape and keep bowling? Yeah, I've been doing some yoga stuff. Some simple. It's not exactly advanced yoga, but it's stuff that helps keep my hip flexors and back and core kind of in better shape and stretched out and loose. Travel is the worst of all of it. So sit in the car, sit in the plane is when it gets worse. So
any downward dog?
Yeah, that is one of the things. Just sitting in Indian style, which seemed like an easy thing when you were 6. Turns out at 53, not as easy. It does feel great though when you get after sitting like that for a while. I did in the bowling center for a while yesterday because I've just been standing and watching.
Is this with the legs crossed?
Yep, just Indian style they used to call it, or whatever, crisscross applesauce.
Buddha.
Huh?
You look Buddha, like Buddha.
Yeah, just sitting there and just sat like that for 5 minutes and let everything kind of all that stretch out. It makes my back feel better. It helps my hip flexors loosen up. And since I'm going 8 days without throwing a ball for the first time in more than a minute, it's gonna, that is definitely not must-see TV. Nobody wants to see me in yoga attire.
Don't they though? First time, long time. Congrats, Chris. My question for you: I bowl on a wood house with medium oil. My form is similar to beef. Okay. I have a dark code, a reality check, phase 2, fate, IQ emerald, electrify pearl, UC3, and plastic spare ball. Am I missing anything?
In general, we would say you're missing a higher end ball, but if you only bowl on league in a wood house, there's probably not a ton of call for a reality or gem at the top end of the bag. Phase 2 is probably as strong as you end up really needing. In reality checks, that's a pretty strong ball too. It's been really good. Stu used it a bunch this year on tour when there's friction in the front, the back half of the year.
The reality check you're talking about?
Yeah. The reality check. It was really good for you.
Yeah, it's very good when there's a little more oil in the back part of the lane, because it doesn't. It's a little more continuous through that oil.
Here's a trigger, and this will probably be my last question. But what are your thoughts on using 30 plus mils of oil creating patterns? Why can't we cut way back, use less surface on balls, and have the pattern hold up longer?
No,
I just watched a bunch of seniors on 28 mils of oil, all throw shiny balls, and still play 4th and 5th arrow. I just don't. All the surfaces are now 20 years older. All the new surfaces are not only 10 points softer, at least, than Pro-Am lane and then SPL, then HPL, but they're also textured, which also makes the ball slow down faster. The balls were at between 75 and 78. They're now all between 73 and 75. They all absorb oil somewhere between 3 and 10 times more, and the average rev rate's 100 higher. Why do we think we oil lanes like 1985 is going to make the lane better? Just asking for a friend.
I just think that we've tried this, though. Like, regardless of what we think one way or the other.
Yeah. It may be completely wrong to put 38 mils. I don't know. But we just haven't done it.
Yeah, we've tried this, and it's come up with one solution.
Sean, we just bowled the PBA senior stop on 22 mils. I slid 46 with a hustle one at the end of A squad. We still had 7 more games to go. So I ended up throwing an emerald where I was landing it a foot short of the arrows, sliding 56 at the end of B squad. I wasn't exactly trying to knock the holes out of it. There's, even for seniors and no rev rate, the lane just doesn't hold up. So we threw weak balls. You do that. They all absorb oil, even shiny, dull, whatever. So
honestly, if you would just try to troll him, this might have been the best question ever.
Yeah. I'm saying try something different. We seem to be trying the same solutions over and over and over and are shocked when the result.
See, this is just blatantly incorrect.
Yeah.
We're literally not chasing oil volumes. They're not putting any more oil on the lane.
When I came on tour in 1998, we put 30 mils out. 30 years later, 25 years later, we're putting 28 mils out. But they're thicker. Well, not all of them are.
Slow down quicker. Yeah.
Anyway.
So, all right, you're going to go.
I do have to go. But I appreciate it and getting my chance. After my rant last week about the card now video and all that, I didn't finish my whole thing. One, when Wriggles put it up, because I do think he follows this whole thing better than most people, well, way better than most people. He has more complete information. So when he put it up, I thought it had some credence. So it shocked me when I watched the whole thing and kept waiting for something of actual information and got none. But yeah, if you are in any way interested, his compilation of all of it is about as complete as possible. So with that, I'm going to go watch Team Event. Stu's got it. Somehow I think he'll be able to cover the space.
It was a banger. All right. It's been real, Chris. See you later.
All right.
Bye. Thanks, Aggie, for the super chat. If you've got a question, hit me up. Oh, there it is. Arsenal question for Austin area, particularly Mel's. Two-handed, slightly rev dominant. DNA, Eternity, Exotic Gems, Summit, Phase 2, Phase 5, High Road, TNT, Hustle Wine. Mel's is kind of like in oil at the minute. I think you could consider I think you could consider a ball on the higher end to accompany the DNA. I think the rest of it all the way through your bag is pretty good. Maybe a Zengo label to kind of bridge that fate, because the Phase 5 is pretty smooth. So that might be an option. So thanks for the super chat. Thanks for the hit me up. If you have any questions, come see me. And I will try to answer them. It says, if one day the powers that be decide to make Kingpin 2, Chris should play Roy Munson's nemesis or the bad guy opposite of Woody, the plot lines would be infinite. I don't know Chris could play the bad guy. Surely the bad guy would be like Sean Rash or Tom Doherty. Let's make every pattern 59 feet. It's not really about how long they make them. It's about how much oil's on them. But yeah, sure. So do you have any more questions for me? Any advice for a super low tilt two-hander? 2LS seems to be a little bit dialed in and leaves me rolling forward. Started trying lower val angles. I'm not really. I'll be honest. I'm not really an expert on 2LS. I would think that you would need to look up the videos and maybe submit a question to Storm Bowling. So I think it's tech at Storm Bowling is probably a better direction to go to find out the best answers to these questions. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer. Oh God. Would the clone be a decent replacement for the reality check? Yeah, kind of. I think that the clone is a little stronger and I think it's a little quicker, which is an interesting combination. But I think the reality check was a little more continuous. But I think the clone is a little stronger overall. Wow, that would have been a very odd. You're saying you were 4 over and a quarter down to 4.5 over and 7/8 up. Man, that's a lot of change in your tilt. That's probably a good thing, though, the 7/8 up. How often do I check my PAP? Almost never. Maybe once a year, maybe. But mainly if I'd see weird stuff, like if I look, because I can just eyeball my track and you can see it. So that's more of an option. Somebody asked me, there it is, Duo versus Cosmos. The Duo is way more angular than the Cosmos. The Cosmos is way more rounded. I think the Duo is a little stronger overall, but the Cosmos is definitely a more round shape. Stu, I got an exotic gem from the tap, but I haven't drilled it. I have the gem, and my shiny ASIMs include X2, Alert, Nova. Should I look at trading the exotic in or just punching some holes in it? I think that the exotic gem is different enough from the X2 and the Alert to warrant having it. But if you wanted to trade it in and somebody was willing to take it, I think that it's always nice to have the new toy. So yeah, maybe check out and like if you like the X2 and you want something a little stronger, maybe the Absolute would be an option for you in that gap. What's the difference between Pinup and Pindown? Think of it as the Pinup balls in general are going to be closer to your valve. So you're going to have a smaller pin buffer. Pin buffer controls response time. So, and that's response time to the friction. So the pin up balls are going to flare a little more in general, and they are going to change direction a little faster and a little harder in relation to the friction. The pin down balls are going to flare a little less because of where you drill the holes into the ball, and they are going to have a more rounded shape. They won't change direction quite as hard. So don't think of it as early or later. Just think about more about the shape. The pinup balls are going to like stand up harder and then get forward quicker, whereas the lower pin balls, the pin down balls, are going to hit the friction and have a longer window before they get forward. So that was custom made. So it's one of one. One of our viewers, Richard, made it for me. Super nice guy. So I didn't delete anything. So it wasn't intentional. I like money. So I didn't delete it. I promise you. But I'll answer your question anyway, because you've been a frequent contributor. The Revenant versus the Exponent. The Exponent's going to be, I would say overall, they're about the same amount of hook. The Exponent is going to be earlier and smoother. Think of the Exponent as almost being like a step down from the phase 2, but that kind of shape. Whereas the Revenant is kind of more like a high road. So that would be kind of where I would see them. Exponent. I wouldn't go from phase 2 to the Exponent very often. I would really, it'd be like I would start with either the Exponent or the phase 2. But that's kind of where I see him. Thanks for attempting a super chat. Around 1 o'clock at Astro on Saturday. It's an option in YouTube. I think there's like a $sign in the chat. You click on it, and that's how you do a super chat. Zengo label versus Zenu. I mean, yeah. I mean, the Zengo label is a shiny reactive ball. The Zenu is a dull urethane complement. So they're not really comparable. No, you don't need to. But yes, some of the ball cleaners are kind of useful. Yes, I didn't see your question. I saw the super chat. The super chat was separated. Let me really spin back through and try and find it. YouTube's doing some really weird things at the minute. So see, there's your super chat, but I don't see a question. So resend the question unstable, and I will get to it. Oh man, this camera's annoying. There we go. So I'm guessing that was probably Jack and Tom. So thank you. But back to this, do we need to clean it after every game? Yes. I think that cleaning it after every game is useful, but it's not necessarily having to do it. I tend to, with the dull balls, I tend to clean them by just adding a little bit of surface rather than necessarily using any cleaner products. But like if you want to try and get the belt marks off, I think pretty much any of the cleaners from the companies work out pretty well. I may or may not use a little bit of alcohol. Shh. We're not supposed to do that. Okay. I guess we needed to make that clarification. Okay, bowling on 43-foot dragon. That's kind of short for dragon. You sure it's not 45? Summit has been my go-to. Want to hit the goal label with surface, your recommendations? Yeah. So if you're going to hit the goal label with surface, don't hit it with too much surface, like not more than 1,000. Probably. Yeah. I mean, if the summit, if you're looking for something off the summit, I think like maybe 1,500 on the goal label might be a good option. Give you something that's a little bit cleaner and something that will come off the spot a little harder than the summit will. So yeah, I think the goal label can fit in that gap pretty good. So thanks for the super chat. I hope that clears it up. Stu, thoughts on the Eternity and when do you use it? For me, the Eternity stands up pretty early in the front part of the lane, so I don't really get to use that one very often. Like I prefer to, for the Pearl asymmetrical ball, I prefer the Absolute that has a little bit less cover. The one time that I have used the Eternity with some success has been on Fresh on like some of the longer patterns. So the first pattern at the US Open was kind of long. I think it was 46 feet. I think it was it was kind of similar to the US Open to the USBC Masters pattern. And I used the Eternity both at the US Open and at the Masters on the Fresh. I think it gave me a little bit more responsive version of, say, a Reality. So, hey, Adam, thanks. You can buy this on the website. So check that out. Hey, Kirk, I got your super chat, but I didn't get a question. So just write the question in the chat and I'll get to you. as soon as possible. Hey, I think that my favorite ball for the last 3 or 4 months has been the Absolute. I can use that on almost everything. So the Absolute's kind of almost become a benchmark ball for me, even though it's not like the traditional low RG solid ball. That's been kind of a really good option for me. What we got here? Zen, Phase 5, and Fate would be nice pieces between the Summer and the Ruby, in my opinion. Yeah, that's pretty solid options for sure. Yeah, not bad. Not bad choices there for sure. Because this was the question. I've got the Summit and the IQ Ruby, looking for something in between. So, Kirk, I have the Exotic Gem, the Dark Code, Zen Soul, and just drilled an IQ Tour Ruby. Any thoughts on the Arsenal? Gem. So it would go Gem, Exotic, Zen Soul, Dark Code, IQ Tour Ruby. I think that like you might be missing something symmetrical to complement the Zen Soul. So maybe something like the Gold Label or the Phase 5. For me, the Zen Soul is very interchangeable with the Phase 2. I don't think those balls are massively different for me. So yeah. Okay, what was your question? Because I did see that super chat. I assumed that it was from somebody else. Hit me up with your question. Just resend it right now, and I'll answer it for you. No problem. Like I say, this thing where it says YouTube user is happening more and more. So I don't know if I've changed something on ours, or if you guys don't have a profile uploaded, that's what's causing it. But yeah, quickly send me the thing, and if I see YouTube user, I'll answer your question for you. Thanks for the super chat. Hey Kirk, no problem. Crooks Prime, Reality Check, Idol, Zen, Hustling, Pitch Black, and Spare Ball. Yeah, that's fairly solid. Might be time to replace that Crooks Prime, but the rest of the bag looks pretty solid. Maybe, depending, you might have a bit of too big of a gap between the Zen and the Ink. Yes, the new Rotogrip Spare Ball is very comparable to a mix. I personally don't like shooting spares with those. Like my wife loves her mix. For me, it wants to hook a little bit and it doesn't work out very well. So, yeah. So the YouTube user who said they bought a super chat and they don't see their question, please tell me if I've answered your question and YouTube's caught up with who you are. Otherwise, bang out the question. I want to get that taken care of. Okay. So what was your question? Let me answer your question, and at least we can get that taken care of. I'm rebuilding my arsenal after 10 plus years. Started with a Phase 2 and a High Road Pearl. Pretty good start. Thinking about adding a Zengo label and Tour Dynamics to fill the gap. 450, 20 miles an hour off my hand. Thoughts? I think that instead of the Dynamics, you'd be better with a ball stronger than the Phase 2. I think you'd then have, like, if you went something like Reality Phase 2, Gold Label, High Road Pearl, I think you'd have a very, very good range. I think that would cover most things. And then after that, what I would do is I would bowl with the balls and like try and see where I felt like most times I was in between, and then fill in the gaps from there. Hey, right. So after January 6th, they will be able to use urethane for the spares, but it will have to be one of the ones that's approved after that date. So, for example, if you have a really old pitch black you use, you won't be able to use that. You'll have to get a fresh pitch black under the correct specs, and then you'll be able to use it. Like mixes and stuff, I think I'm not quite sure how that's working. I think that the mixes are so hard that it's almost got to the point where they're not really worried about it, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But yes, you will be able to use it, but it'll have to conform to the specs, the same as if you were using it for a first ball. So, struggling with the Idol Cosmos, both with light polish. And what was your take on that ball? For me, the Idol Cosmos was like, it was really a control piece, good on fresh, good with straighter angles. That's kind of when people used it the most, kind of just to keep the ball in front of them. Simo used it a lot, going straighter. Not really a ball to curve the lane with, from what I've seen anyway. Yeah. DNA, Summit, Absolute, Marble Pearl, short pin layout, melee carbon. Yeah, I mean, might be a bit of a gap between Summit and Absolute, but no, I think that's pretty solid. Gem, Pearl Plummet, Axiom, Eternity, 3D Offset. Which one? Marvel, Triton, Elite, Idol Pro. Suggestions on anything to try to mix into the league bag? I think maybe a strongest, like a angular, strong symmetrical ball. So maybe something like a Zen might be an option to add to that. Yeah, but I'm not, like I say, I don't want to get involved really with, but I think all the balls are going to have to be after that 2022. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work with the mixes and stuff, and like whether they're considering the mix to be urethane or whatever. So mix is already hard. Yeah, exactly. I have a phase 2 and a fate, and I was thinking either Zengo label or Ruby. What would you suggest? If you have a fate and a phase 2, I would think that you'd want something a little higher RG than those two. So maybe like a Revenant would probably fit a little better. I think that those balls, if that's all you've got, I think that those two balls are going to be a little bit too close. If I had a Nova and I wanted to add something, if I was super speed dominant, I might consider putting some surface on the Nova and then add in, say, a Zen or a gold label. I think the Summit is quite strong like that. So, yeah, you said this on Tuesday, Adam. Yeah, the Exponent has been good so far. Stu, any tips how to get lined up, matched up quickly, especially on unknown quantums? Chris kind of has a system. What you really need to do is you really need to throw shots to the right to figure out where the friction is. And then once you find a way of where the friction is, then you kind of need to find out where the oil is. I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, but basically what you want to do is you want to find out where there's hook and where there isn't a hook. So if you throw the ball to the right and you ball on a long pattern, it doesn't hook, you're going to end up maybe move a little further right to see if there is any hook out there. Once it goes straight, then you're going to have to chase it in till you find a spot where the ball will tip. And then you can kind of do it. If you imagine when you're trying to set and understand the pattern, think about it like you want to be able to draw the pattern with, like, take a pen and paper and like be able to draw where you think the oil starts and where you think the dry starts, or the friction starts. The dry is probably a bad word, but and then that will be a good way of being able to figure out what the pattern is, and then in your mind. So when I'm bowling and I change lanes, that's what I'm always trying to do. I'm always trying to paint the picture in my mind of how I see the lane. Like, is there friction in the front part of the lane? Am I going to use that? Is there friction to the right or to the left? Like, is the hold, like all of those things. So that's how I try to get lined up. I'm bowling a sport pattern league this coming up. House shot, short pattern, long pattern in 2019. What balls are must in the bag? I don't think anything are must-haves. The balls that I like, that kind of the ones that I take a lot of the places are reality, phase 2, absolute. And then from there, it's, you know, I like a Zen, whether it's the Zen or the gold label. And like, that's kind of how I build it. You really want a strong dual asymmetrical for sure. And I think a pearl asymmetrical is a good option. Then I think you want one of those phase 2 or phase 2 or a summit, like as a kind of that benchmark. Then like something quicker that's strong like that. And then as you move down, you can go with, say, something like an Exponent and a Revenant, say, so that you fill out those, like Barnes almost has a, like a spreadsheet almost. So he'll have like strong, medium, and weak, and then he'll have quick response and slow response. So like for him, the strong, slow response one could be a gem or reality. And then the quicker one could be like, say, an exotic gem or an absolute. And then moving down, he'd have like, say, a phase 2 and a Zengo label. And then moving down once more, he'd have maybe like an Exponent or an IQ Tour and, say, a Revenant or an IQ Ruby, something like that. So that's kind of the way we attack it. Hey, Cameron, thanks for the super chat. What are the noticeable differences between the IQ Ruby and the Revenant? So for me, the IQ Ruby is a lot earlier. Yeah, it just picks up a lot sooner in the front part of the lane for me, even though it's lower flaring. I think that with it being low RG, I feel like it picks up sooner and it's way smoother. You can kind of use it a little earlier in the transition. Whereas for me, the Revenant is it's high RG. I think the cover is super clean. Even though there's somewhat like written down as the same covers, I feel like the Revenant cover is a little cleaner. It might have something to do with the color, whatever. But for me anyway, the Revenant cover seems a little cleaner. The high RG gets it to be a little more responsive. And I just feel like the Revenant is a ball that once the lane has transitioned completely, it's one that you can get left with and really curve the lane. So that's kind of the difference I see between them. I would go from the Ruby to the Revenant, would be how I would see the transition through my bag. All right, Joe, how are you doing? Current Arsenal, Reality, Exotic Gem, IQ Solid, Ruby, High Road Pearl. Had a dark code, but it cracked. What am I missing? What should I add? I think you're missing something like a phase 2. I think there's quite a big gap between an Exotic Gem and an IQ. So that's where I would put something in. If you wanted to, if your High Road Pearl was getting a little bit long in the tooth, I would consider a Revenant as a reasonable option. I use Storm Green protective tape and 1 inch white and 3/8 in the back. Hang up in the ball, normally fast exit. I mean, I think it's a little hard to put tape. Like if you're using thumb protective tape, I don't think putting tape against that is a very good option. That might be what's causing you to hang up in it a little bit, from just having two rough surfaces next to each other. Otherwise, it's probably just that your timing's a little off and that you're not getting, you're a little late with your timing. Revenant is R3S. I always felt like that cover type wanted to get down the lane super easy. Even the phase 3 Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. I'm not a very good staffer for that. I don't tend to remember all the cover names. I just kind of have in my mind where they fit. So I'm glad that some of my nonsense that I'm speaking actually makes some sense. Just bought the clone to my always good Code Red. Will it work similar? Yeah, reasonably similar. I think that the clone is going to be a decent bit stronger than the Code Red, especially if you've had the Code Red for a while. Because obviously the longer you have the balls, they do tend to lose a little bit of performance. So I think the clone will be a nice refresh in the bag. It'll definitely be stronger. Okay. If we haven't got any more super chats coming through, this will be the last one. Supernova, IQ Emerald, IQ Solid, X2, Zen, Zenu, Hustle USA, Summit coming from League, Honey Badger Extreme 22 on its way. What should I add? Oh. So you're going to be Supernova, Summit, IQ Solid. I don't have any idea what the Honey Badger Extreme 2022 is, to be honest. If you were to add something, I think something like a phase 2 might be an option. But I mean, Summit and Zen probably work interchangeably pretty well. The IQ Emerald, Hustle USA. Yeah, I think you've got a pretty decent options there. I mean, maybe you could go with like a Hustle Rip instead of the USA. It's just a little cleaner. Yes, I've used Turbo Switch Grip for basically almost my entire professional career, before PBA as well. I think that's the premier option. But yes, I think for pretty much everybody, having an interchangeable is an absolute must these days. It's just way too difficult to replicate that feel ball to ball without it. And also gives you the option of being able to, have like a slightly bigger thumb or, whatever. And it also, if you use tape, it saves you some money on tape because you don't need to use quite as much because you've only got the one, the 2 or 3 thumb holes that you have to change rather than the like 7 or 8. So, yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for another great show. If you get the chance, please support the sponsors that support us. They are Storm, Rotogrip, 900 Global, Coolwick, Bowls Mart, Firelate Bowling Center, Lightning Strikes, and Platinum Ford, as well as Turbo. So thanks again. Oh, sorry. Hold the credits. Pitch 3 is my benchmark ball. What is an optimum stronger hybrid? I don't know because I don't really think of balls like that. Maybe the chat can help me out here. What have we got? I guess the Duo is a stronger hybrid. No, that's Pearl. So that's not helpful. I honestly don't know the answer to this question. Phase 5 is Pearl also. Wow. I don't even know if we have one. This is fun. Yeah, I don't think we have like a hybrid ball right now. Do we have a hybrid ball anywhere, guys? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we actually make a hybrid ball at all at the minute. So Summit is hybrid. Is it really? Oh, there you go. The Summit. I don't think the Summit fits in the gap that you're talking about, but the Summit is. Are you going to guys blow my mind and tell me the Absolute's hybrid as well? I didn't know. I think the Absolute's Pearl. Is the Absolute really hybrid? Oh. Well, there you go. The answer is the Absolute, because the Absolute's the answer to absolutely everything. Yes. So the two options, the duo is Pearl. It can't be a Pearl. It can't be a Pearl hybrid. So tech time with Stu. Yes, I would say that the Absolute is going to be the option, even though it is asymmetrical. That makes a lot of sense for me. So that's what I use as my benchmark ball kind of deal at the minute. Because we ball on so much friction, I don't think that the phase 2 as the benchmark makes sense, because it's always so much stronger. So thanks for the super chat again. And like I say, support those sponsors that support us: Storm, Rotogrip, 900 Global, Vice, Turbo, Coolwick, Bowlers Mart, Lightning Strikes, Platinum Ford, and Fire Lake Bowling Center. With that, I will see you next week. Everybody have a great weekend. If you're bowling, take everybody's money. And I will see you on Tuesday. Take care. Bye-bye now.